New details surrounding Brandon Clarke's final moments are starting to leak online, and fans are disturbed by what he allegedly said before his sudden death. From emotional messages to claims about who he was with that night, the internet is now trying to piece together what really happened. Brandon Clarke of the Memphis Grizzlies died on Monday, May 11th, 2026. His death was announced Tuesday by the Grizzlies and his representation, Priority Sports. A cause of death was not immediately known. Then, within hours of the announcement, a clip surfaced. A user named Fendi posted it on X with the caption, "Brandon Clarke's last interview before he passed away says he felt something bad was going to happen, and he has been very unlucky the last few days. The first, I just hope to stay in the league as long as I can. The second, outside world ain't safe. Now, on their own, those statements could mean anything. A player dealing with injuries, worried about his future. A young man from a rough environment, acknowledging the realities of life outside the NBA bubble. But when those words come from someone who is now dead at 29, they take on a different weight." LAPD sources confirmed to ABC News that Clarke was found dead from a possible drug overdose Monday in a home located in Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley. Narcotics were found at the scene, and there was no evidence of foul play. Sources told ABC News. Injuries hindered Clarke's career the last few years, and he only played 2 games this season after recovering from a knee injury, then suffering a season-ending calf injury in December. The Grizzlies ruled him out for the rest of the season on March 24th. Then in April, Clarke was arrested in Arkansas and charged with possession of a controlled substance, fleeing in a vehicle while exceeding the speed limit, and trafficking a controlled substance. He was released the following day on bond. A man who once signed a $52 million contract extension with Memphis was, within the span of a few months, sidelined from the sport that defined him, arrested on drug charges, and then found dead in a house in California. And his last known interview paints the picture of someone who sensed, whether consciously or not, that things were heading in the wrong direction. He said he'd been very unlucky the last few days. He said the outside world wasn't safe. He said he just wanted to stay in the league. That interview is now everywhere. Those words are now being dissected by millions. And the question people keep asking is, did Brandon Clarke know? Brandon Clarke was born in Vancouver, British Columbia on September 19, 1996, to a Canadian mother and Jamaican father. At age 3, Clarke moved with his family to the U.S. city of Phoenix, Arizona. He was a dual citizen of Canada and the U.S. He attended Desert Vista High School in Phoenix and was named All-Arizona Division I honoree by the Arizona Republic after leading Desert Vista to the championship game in 2015. But Clarke wasn't one of those players who was a 5-star recruit. He wasn't on every scouting service's radar. He wasn't getting calls from Duke and Kentucky. He was an overlooked prospect, the kind of kid who had to take a different road. Clarke began his college career at San Jose State, where he came off the bench as a freshman, before blossoming into an all-conference performer as a sophomore in the 2016-17 season. He was voted the 6th man of the year in the Mountain West by the league's head coaches as a freshman. By his sophomore season, he was a different player entirely, dominating on both ends of the floor. The 6'9" big man spent 2 years with the Spartans, averaging 17.3 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks in 2016-17, before deciding he needed a bigger stage. That bigger stage was Gonzaga. Clarke shifted gears from 2 years at San Jose State to Gonzaga University, a step up that would boost him much higher up the draft radar. He missed a season due to NCAA transfer rules, but every moment he spent watching, learning, and preparing in that redshirt year was fuel for what came next. When Clarke finally suited up for Gonzaga in the 2018-19 season, the basketball world took notice immediately. Clarke exploded onto the scene for the Zags, helping to lead Gonzaga to the Elite Eight, as the catalyst to one of the most talented and exciting rosters in Mark Few's entire tenure in Spokane. He averaged 16.9 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 3.2 blocks per game, en route to All-American honors. Clarke's 117 total blocks led the NCAA and set Gonzaga's single-season record, which was tied by Chet Holmgren 3 years later. That Gonzaga roster was stacked on a team with 7 future NBA players: Rui Hachimura, Corey Kispert, Zach Norvell, Filip Petrusev, Killian Tilly, and Joel Ayayi. Clarke was the anchor on both ends of the floor. He was the engine, the centerpiece, the player who made it all work. And then he delivered one of the most memorable individual performances in NCAA tournament history. On March 23, 2019, Clarke recorded a career-high 36 points, alongside 8 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 3 assists, in an 83-71 win over number 9 seeded Baylor. He became the third player in NCAA tournament history to record a game of 35-plus points alongside 5 blocks, joining Shaquille O'Neal and David Robinson as the only players to do so. Clarke also broke a team record in points scored in an NCAA tournament game, breaking a record previously set by Adam Morrison. In his junior season at Gonzaga, Clarke was named the West Coast Conference's Newcomer of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and a member of the All-WCC First Team. He was the first player in WCC history to win both their Newcomer of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year honors in the same season. He helped lead the team to the Elite Eight, where it fell to Texas Tech. From an overlooked high schooler to an All-American, sharing a record book with Shaquille O'Neal and David Robinson, that was the trajectory of Brandon Clarke. And the NBA was next. Clarke was selected in the first round of the 2019 NBA Draft with the 21st overall pick. On July 7, 2019, the Memphis Grizzlies announced that they had officially acquired the rights to Clarke from the Oklahoma City Thunder for draft rights to Darius Bazley and a future second-round draft pick. Before he even played a regular season game, Clarke was already making a statement. With 4 double-doubles, he was named the most valuable player of the 2019 NBA Summer League, becoming the second non-American to win the award. He had 15 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks in the championship game, to lead Memphis to the league championship and earned game MVP honors as well, becoming the first non-American to win championship MVP and the first player in Summer League history to win both honors. That Summer League performance was a signal. Clarke was not going to be a player who drifted through his rookie year. He was going to compete every single night. Clarke showed promise in his first season, averaging 12.1 points, 5.9 rebounds, and finishing 4th in the Rookie of the Year voting. On September 15th, Clarke was named to the 2019-20 NBA All-Rookie First Team. He had arrived. He and Ja Morant, the number 2 overall pick that same year, were the twin pillars of a new era in Memphis. Clarke, along with Ja Morant, was the longest tenured player on the Grizzlies. Their partnership represented the franchise's transition from the grit and grind era of Marc Gasol and Mike Conley to something younger, faster, more explosive. Clarke carved out a role as one of the most reliable role players in the league. He wasn't the star, he wasn't the franchise player, but he was the kind of player championship teams need, the one who does the dirty work, grabs the rebounds, contests the shots, finishes at the rim, and doesn't complain about coming off the bench. He largely played off the bench and was a key figure on the 2021-22 Grizzlies team that won 56 games. That was the best regular season in franchise history, and Clarke was an integral part of it. During Memphis's deepest postseason run in 2022, a season during which they won 56 regular season games, he became a necessity on the floor because of his aggressive rebounding and ability to finish at the rim at a high rate. In that playoff run, Clarke elevated his game to another level. On April 26th, Clarke recorded playoff career highs of 21 points and 15 rebounds in a 111-109 Game 5 win. On April 29th, he recorded 17 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks, as the Grizzlies eliminated the Timberwolves from the playoffs with a 114-106 Game 6 win. The Grizzlies were eventually eliminated during the second round, with the Golden State Warriors beating them in 6 games. But the Grizzlies saw enough. They believed in Clarke's long-term value. On October 16, 2022, Clarke signed a 4-year, $52 million contract extension with the Grizzlies. Though he was never a full-time starter, he was part of the core of players the Grizzlies were trying to build into a championship-contending team over the last several years. At 26 years old, Brandon Clarke had $52 million guaranteed, a starting caliber role on one of the most exciting young teams in basketball, and the respect of every teammate who ever shared a locker room with him. His agency would later describe him as the gentlest soul who was the first to be there for all of his friends and family. Everything was in front of him, and then his body started to betray him. The date was March 3, 2023. The Grizzlies were playing the Denver Nuggets, a showdown between two of the best teams in the Western Conference. During a 113-97 loss to the Denver Nuggets, Clarke suffered a left leg injury and exited the game after playing only 2 minutes. The next day, the Grizzlies announced that Clarke had suffered a torn left Achilles, ending his 2022-23 season. A torn Achilles tendon. For a basketball player, it's one of the most devastating injuries possible. It attacks the very thing that makes an athlete an athlete. The ability to explode, to jump, to move laterally, to be quick. For a player like Clarke, whose entire game was built on energy, athleticism, and relentless effort, the Achilles tear threatened to take away everything that made him special. He tore an Achilles tendon in March 2023, and he appeared in only 6 games the following season. 6 games, an entire year of his career essentially erased. The road back from an Achilles tear is grueling. Months of rehabilitation, of slowly rebuilding strength, of wondering if you'll ever be the same player again. For Clarke, the answer was complicated. After seeing limited playing time and a career-low 8.3 points per game during the 2024-25 NBA season, Clarke sustained a PCL injury that caused him to miss the final 12 games of the regular season. Even when he was on the court, he wasn't the same player. The explosiveness that defined his game, the shot blocking, the aggressive rebounding, the rim running, had diminished, and then more injuries followed. He then sustained a knee injury over the offseason, causing Clarke to undergo surgery and miss time early in the 2025-26 NBA season. He was able to return to the team for just 2 games, before sustaining a calf injury that would keep him out for the rest of the season. Think about that for a moment. Injuries limited Clarke to 72 of a possible 246 games over the past 3 seasons, including only 2 this season. A man who had signed a $52 million contract to be a core piece of the Grizzlies' future was now watching from the sideline as his body fell apart, season after season. The Grizzlies themselves were falling apart too. The championship contender that won 56 games in 2022 was unrecognizable. The franchise was in the middle of a rebuild, and Clarke, once a symbol of the team's bright future, was now a player with a massive contract who couldn't get on the court. On March 24, 2026, the Grizzlies said that he would miss the rest of the season as his rehab continued. That was it. His 7th season in Memphis ended with 2 games played, and then just 8 days later, everything took a darker turn. Clarke was arrested April 1st in Arkansas for speeding and possession of a controlled substance. That was reportedly kratom, an herbal supplement promoted as an alternative pain remedy that is legal to possess in Tennessee. But that wasn't all. Clarke was booked just after 1 p.m. in Cross County, Arkansas. He was charged with improper passing, possession of a controlled substance, fleeing exceeding the speed limit, and trafficking a controlled substance. He was released on bond a day later, fleeing from law enforcement, trafficking charges, for a man who had spent 7 years as a respected NBA player, a teammate everyone loved, a person his agency described as always there as the most supportive friend you could ever imagine. This was a signal that something had gone wrong, something had shifted, and people around him were either unable or unaware of just how far things had gone. That arrest was on April 1st. 40 days later, Brandon Clarke was dead. And that brings us back to the interview, the one that surfaced within hours of Clarke's death being announced. By Shams Charania, on X, Brandon Clarke of the Memphis Grizzlies has died at 29 years old. R.I.P. The clip started circulating everywhere. In it, Clarke talked about feeling like something bad was about to happen. He said he'd been unlucky. He said the outside world wasn't safe. He said he just wanted to stay in the league. Those are the words of a man who, at some level, understood the precariousness of his situation. A professional athlete whose body was failing him, whose career was slipping away, who was dealing with things off the court that he couldn't seem to control. TMZ reported that Clarke's death is being investigated as a possible overdose, as drug paraphernalia was found. An autopsy will determine the cause and manner of death. According to NBC Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics responded to a 911 call of a medical emergency at a home in the San Fernando Valley on Monday evening. When they arrived, they found Clarke dead. Authorities do not suspect foul play. The basketball world responded with an outpouring of grief that reflected just how loved Clarke was. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said, "We are devastated to learn of the passing of Brandon Clarke." As one of the longest tenured members of the Grizzlies, Brandon was a beloved teammate and leader who played the game with enormous passion and grit. The National Basketball Players Association released a statement from NBPA Executive Director Andre Iguodala and NBPA President Fred VanVleet. "We are heartbroken by the tragic passing of our brother Brandon Clarke. This is an incredible loss for the brotherhood. We will remember Brandon not only for the immense joy he brought to so many throughout his career, but for the genuine friendships he built far beyond basketball. His teammates, past and present, flooded social media. Kyle Anderson, who had 2 stints with the Grizzlies, said he was so hurt by the loss. And Priority Sports, the agency that had represented Clarke throughout his career, released a statement that captured who he was beyond the basketball court. Our hearts are so broken as we think about his mom, Whitney, his entire family, and all of his friends and teammates. From high school to San Jose State, to Gonzaga to the Grizzlies, Brandon impacted everyone who was part of his life. Everyone loved BC because he was always there as the most supportive friend you could ever imagine. He was so unique in the joy he brought to all of those in his life. It's just impossible to put into words how much he'll be missed. The Memphis Grizzlies, the only franchise Clarke ever played for, released their own statement. "We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of Brandon Clarke. Brandon was an outstanding teammate and an even better person, whose impact on the organization and the greater Memphis community will not be forgotten." What's worth remembering is this. Just months before his death, in September 2025, Clarke celebrated his 29th birthday by giving back to the local community. He visited Collegiate Elementary School and surprised a classroom of second graders with a $1,500 donation to support literacy awareness, books, and resources. He added another $2,000, bringing the total to $3,500 for a Rise to Read. That's who Brandon Clarke was. A man who spent his birthday giving money to second graders so they could have books. And that's what makes this so devastating. The leaked interview, the words about the outside world not being safe, the feeling that something bad was coming. None of it happened in a vacuum. It happened in the context of a man whose career was built on hard work and defying expectations, who went from being overlooked in high school to putting his name next to Shaquille O'Neal's in the NCAA tournament record books, who helped build the Grizzlies into a 56-win team, who signed a $52 million deal, who donated to elementary schools on his birthday, and who was then ravaged by injuries, sidelined from the game he loved, arrested on drug charges, and found dead at 29 in a house in the San Fernando Valley. He played 7 seasons in the NBA, averaging 10.2 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1.3 assists over 309 games. Those are the career numbers, but the numbers don't tell the full story. The full story is in those final words, words that now feel less like a casual interview and more like a warning that nobody caught in time. "I just hope to stay in the league as long as I can. Outside world ain't safe." Brandon Clarke was 29 years old.